Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Picture the scene. It's 1990, and in the breaks for your favourite Saturday morning cartoons, you keep seeing the same advertisement for a thrilling new board game that came out just last year. It has barbarians, dwarves, elves, orcs, goblins, and monstrous undead creatures. It builds a world of high fantasy and magic on your tabletop, and it looks awesome. So naturally, when your birthday is approaching and your parents ask you what you want, of course you say, I want that new dungeon game. And then, the big day. Your parents hand you a beautifully wrapped board game shaped present. It must be it. It has to be it. You tear into the paper. It's here. Oh, Dungeons of Demus. What the heck is this? Okay, first of all, to clarify, I never had to endure this level of disappointment as a child. My parents gave me my copy of HeroQuest on Christmas morning 1989, and it was the best gift I ever received. I never even knew about Dungeons of Demus until many years later, and I never owned a copy or even played a copy until just a few short weeks ago. And where do I begin with this? Just look at the state of it. Bear in mind, this game came out in 1990. The previous year had seen the release of HeroQuest and Space Hulk. Dungeon Quest, Talisman and the Warlock of Fartop Mountain had been out for years at this point. And then this. Dungeons of Demus was the product of Chorlton Design Studios, who, as far as I can gather, only made one other game, Roy of the Rovers. Roy of the Rovers was, maybe still is, a popular football-based comic strip. I hated it. I suspect I would hate the game too. But back to Dungeons of Demus, a game for 2 to 6 players aged, according to the cover, 5 to 105. It is the all-action sword and sorcery game in which you must prevent Demus from seizing the throne and enslaving the land, and enter the castle and defeat the necromancer, which is indeed 2 different ways of saying the same thing. And I don't think I need to say too much about the cover artwork here. I could be cruel and flash up images of box art from other board games of the time, but I don't think there would be much point. Art is subjective, certainly, and you can't compare different art styles. Or, in the case of the artist here, stick to just using one art style. Every character in this picture appears to have arrived from a different game, each of which is illustrated as badly as this one. I'm not sure we can even figure out exactly what's going on here. Redbeard over on the left, that's Demus. Yes, the necromancer, Demus. I know. Try not to look too closely at the size of his feet or the dark void of his nether regions where his beard parts. Stare too long and you might start to think he's actually made of beard. The goblin, that is a goblin in the middle, appears to be attacking Demus, but actually the goblins are his servants and they protect him. I guess someone forgot to flip the clip art because the goblin should really be dealing with that wizard who has casually strolled into the throne room behind him. That old guy really isn't selling the role though. He keeps looking at the camera. And then in the background we have a thief who is pushing a door open, but the door isn't hinged in the archway and isn't opening at the correct angle. And considering where the thief's hand is resting on the door, we have to assume that arm is about 6 feet long and double jointed. Unless, of course, the thief isn't opening the door at all. He's just waving at the knight who has taken her boots off and climbed inside a treasure chest. You know what? Enough. I've had my fun. I'm going to review this game seriously now. The board comprises 4 jigsaw pieces. There was no need for it to be 4 jigsaw pieces, other than this was surely cheaper than making a nice folding mounted board. But at least the artwork is consistent? The game itself is very simple, so simple that the full rules are printed on the card insert inside the box. Incidentally, the same rules are also printed in full on the back of the box, because otherwise they would have had to have shown some of the game components, and that is a terrible way to market this game. However, despite the overall simplicity, the rules manage to make it seem complicated by being badly written, poorly formatted, overly wordy, lacking in clarity, and just plain wrong in some cases. Other than that, they are spot on. One player will play Demus, and they get the Demus standee. They place him on the start space in the throne room. This is the most exciting thing Demus will do for the rest of the game. Up to 5 other players take on control of the heroes, and I say up to 5 because that's the number specified on the box, but the rules seem to imply you actually play with a maximum of 4 heroes. Whatever, you're never going to find 5 people who want to play this anyway. There are 3 types of hero to choose from, and there are 2 of each: Wizard, Warrior and Thief. Pick the Wizard because the rest are rubbish. We'll get to why in a moment. The players take a standee, a matching character card and 5 life point tokens, and they place their standees by the start space of the board, ready for adventure. No, that's overselling it. Ready for stuff to happen. That might be overselling it too. Ready. They're ready. Next, Demus will randomly draw a Guardian card. Each of these Guardians has a different item associated with them that will help to defeat them. So Demus takes all the copies of the relevant item and shuffles them into a deck of chest cards. These cards are placed face down on the treasure chests on the board. The Guardian is placed face down on the Guardian space in the throne room. Demus then takes 5 monster standees and places them in rooms of their choosing to guard the chests, and then takes 5 goblin standees and places them in the guard room. Finally, the trap cards, all 5 of them, are shuffled and placed on the trap card space. The heroes in clockwise order will each take a turn. This involves spinning the spinner. Oh yes, no dice here, it's a good old spinner. You spin and refer to the value in the yellow ring, which invariably means moving the spinner out of the way because it obscures all the numbers. This is how many spaces your hero can move. Your maximum movement is 6 spaces. Yes, this is achingly slow. But don't worry, there are plenty of fun things to do as you explore the dungeon. For example, you can jump over one of these crack spaces, or indeed the big chasm around the centre area of the board. If you do, you draw a trap card. These cards show a number in a coloured circle for each hero class. Spin the spinner and refer to the colour band for your character class. If the result matches the number on the trap card, you're fine. Otherwise, you lose a life point. Another exciting thing is moving through a portal. First, you refer to your character card and see which colour you use for magic. So for the wizard, that's yellow, and for the warrior, it's yellow, and for the thief, it's... You spin the spinner and refer to the yellow band, and if you scored 5 or more, you can use the portal to immediately move to the portal on the other side of the board. Or, how about this? If you are in the room with the Fountain of Life, you can restore all your life points to maximum. All gripping stuff, I'm sure you will agree, but mainly on your turns you are going to wander around corridors and then eventually go into rooms. If the room has a chest, you can instantly loot it, taking the card and adding it to your stash. You might get a sword that gives you +1 on your combat spins, or nothing, or a helmet that does nothing, or a key that does nothing, or a robe that does... Okay, I am being a little facetious here. The items that don't have any abilities associated with them are the ones that help to defeat particular guardians, so they have a very specific purpose. There are other items that are useful in more general terms. Anyway, if there is a monster in the room, you can't loot any treasure until you defeat it. For combat, you have a choice to make. You can either make an opposed spin against the enemy using your combat value, or you can perform your special attack. For example, the wizard uses the red spinner for combat, but they also have the special attack defeat spell. If they elect to use the defeat spell, they spin the spinner, and if they score 11 or more, they instantly win the fight. On any other result, they lose a life point and can either run out of the room or fight another round of combat. Alternatively, they can make a regular combat spin using the red spinner. After spinning and noting the result, the monster retaliates. This cute little spider spins on the yellow spinner. You compare the 2 spins and the loser loses a life point. The spider has 2 life points, so you would have to win a second round of combat to finish it off. Now, I have issues with this combat system. I'll put the wizard character card and the warrior character card side by side, and let's see if you can spot the glaring error. See it? The wizard and the warrior have the same values for combat and magic, and the wizard is actually better in a fight than the warrior, being able to kill any monster on a spin of 11 or more, while the warrior needs a spin of at least 13. It gets worse. If we look at the spinner, we can see that the values on the red spinner are 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, while the values on the yellow spinner are 1 through 6. Almost all of the enemies you will face use the yellow spinner. Unless you are fighting one of the 2 or 3 tougher enemies, why would the warrior ever want to use the spear ability, which requires a spin of 13 or more to succeed? A spin of 13 or more is a 2 in 6 chance, but if you are fighting a monster that uses the yellow spinner, you only need to spin at least a 7, a 5 in 6 chance, to guarantee winning. And even if you spin your lowest score of 5, you will probably still win or draw, as only a spin of 6 from the monster will beat you. Now, factor in there are treasure items that add to your combat spin. If you have a sword that adds 3 to your spin and a curse that adds another 2, you are guaranteed to be able to instantly kill anything in the dungeon except for the dragon and enchantress guardians. Speaking of guardians, as long as you have the right item, most of them are weaker than the regular enemies in the dungeon. I mean, it's an absolute shambles. Oh, I should mention the thief. The thief has a special shadow ability. If they elect to use it and succeed the spin, no monsters are defeated, but the thief is considered to be invisible and can open the chest in the room without risk of being attacked. If they fail the spin, they lose a life point and will then have to either run away or start fighting using the blue spinner. Generally, as with the other heroes, you are better off just fighting, especially once you have a few treasure items to improve your spin. Better yet, just play as a wizard or warrior. While a lot of the monsters you will face are placed in rooms and never leave, Demus also has a horde of goblins at his command. They start in the guard room and can move out to patrol the corridors without ever going into any other rooms. Each time Demus takes a turn, 5 movement points are allocated to the goblins to be distributed as required. Each movement point allows a goblin to move 1 square. Goblins will fight heroes from adjacent spaces and must be fought in order to pass through them. And so, the heroes will fight the monsters, loot the treasure, and eventually enter the throne room. There they reveal the final guardian, which they fight like any other monster. If they kill it, they win. Demus is defeated. No, you don't ever actually fight Demus. So, I bet you're wondering, if you don't fight Demus, what does he actually do? The answer is, not much. He begins the game on the start space, and every time a hero loses 1 life point, he advances 1 space. If he reaches the throne, the game ends. All the heroes lose, and everybody playing wins. It's just your basic Doom clock, ticking down to defeat, and I wouldn't have much more to say about it if it wasn't for the fact the rules here make it quite clear the game was intended for only 4 heroes, and therefore only 5 players, and not the 6 suggested on the box. This is evident because the rules include scaling instructions for if there are less than 4 heroes in play, not less than 5. So either the designers think that playing with 5 heroes is no different to playing with 4, or else they forgot what the maximum player count was. I'm pretty sure it's the latter because they also forgot how they numbered the spaces on the board. Check this out. If you are playing with the maximum number of heroes, 4, 5, whatever, Demus starts on the start space and needs to inflict 11 wounds to win. If you are playing with 3 heroes, he starts on step number 9, so now he only needs to inflict 2 wounds on heroes to win. If you are playing with 2 heroes, he starts on step number 7, so now he needs to inflict 4 wounds to win. If you are playing with just 1 hero, he starts on step number 5, and now he has to inflict 6 wounds on the hero to win. Clearly, that's not right. I'm sure they mean that for 3 heroes you start 9 spaces from the throne, that would start you on space 2, and then for 2 heroes you would start 7 spaces from the throne on space 4, and for 1 hero you would start 5 spaces from the throne on space 6. That's the only way it makes sense to me. And something like that just speaks volumes about how slapdash this game is. Now, some people may think I've been unfair to Dungeons of Demus. It's clearly a kids game. It's aimed at the family market. It's also nearly 35 years old, so the design is a little archaic. But hey, I hear those same comments being made about HeroQuest all the time. And when companies like Waddington's were putting out games like Lost Valley of the Dinosaurs 5 years prior, I don't think there is any justification for a game that looks this bad and plays this poorly. If you want something to introduce new or younger gamers to dungeon crawlers, this ain't it. It never was. But look, this game is terrible. Everything about it is terrible. Awful production quality, awful artwork, horrible rules, boring gameplay, player elimination, badly worked out combat systems, and badly designed heroes. Heck, there isn't even enough hero classes. If you play with at least 4 heroes, at least one class is going to be doubled up. But I can't help but kind of like the game. Not in a I want to play that kind of way, but in a I need to preserve a copy of this in my collection as a warning for future generations kind of way. I do collect vintage thematic games, but I also have a rule that nothing stays in my collection if it doesn't get played. This isn't getting played. And yet, just look at it. It's so phenomenally terrible. It has an awful charm in just how bodged everything is. It's rare to see a game with this much wrong with it. I can't recommend anybody should go out and buy a copy, but I'm not sure I have the heart to get rid of my copy either. So why don't you let me know your thoughts in the comments, because that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.